Hey YouTube, it's Cody in the cinema. It's warming up outside. There's green stuff everywhere. Lots of flowers. It made me think maybe it's time to cover a film about spring. And I was going through a series of choices here, and I arrived at covering what I think is one of the best black and white family dramas ever, if not the best, from one of the greatest all-time directors featuring my favorite actress. So this movie is called Late Spring, directed by Yasujiro Ozu, starring Setsuko Hara, and it was released in 1949. And if you've not heard of this director, he's had plenty of big-time movies. His most famous, that's on every list, is Tokyo Story. He directed An Autumn Afternoon, movie after movie that's been critically acclaimed. A lot of times people have heard of Akira Kurosawa, maybe they haven't heard of Ozu, but he's my favorite Japanese director and one of my favorite directors in general. And this film is mostly about this young woman, Nariko, played by Hara, and she's been living for a long time with her father. He's a widower, and there's this pressure, both from family pressure, internal pressure for her to be married and kind of move on to that next step, and for her to move on, for her father to move on. And the opening part of this film, it starts with these empty shots of like a train station and railroad tracks, and just right away you can kind of feel the melancholy that this is going to become. It's instant, and after that we cut very quickly to our leading actress, Setsuko Hara, and she's at tea time with all these women. We learn that she's 27. She's not married, as I said, and this is where you're first introduced to the director's style. If you're not familiar with Ozu works, he did tend to shoot in such a way that the camera would be placed still, often at a low angle, and much like what I'm doing now, talking to a camera, that's what each character would do. So the daughter would talk, and then the father would talk, and there wasn't that over-the-shoulder kind of angle that you might be used to. And so this is not something that's typically done, and it's very much his unique style. Another thing that Ozu does in the film, and he does this in other films, he has what some people have referred to as pillow shots. So a certain interaction will happen between two characters. It might be an emotional scene, and afterward he'll kind of show you a series of images that are designed to give you time to sort of absorb and process what you've just seen. It could be an empty street. It could be, in this particular film, there's a famous shot of a vase. It could be an empty hallway. It could be a building. But he has these shots, and they very much build the emotion in the film. You'll know what I'm talking about if you have seen like his films before, or if you watch one. You'll see this pretty quickly. But as we go along in our story in this film, Late Spring, we realize just how much pressure that Nariko is under to marry. And it slowly unfolds. Ozu movies work at their own pace. He's very content to allow the actors to do the heavy lifting. And I wrote down a few notes about some shots that I liked. There's this great shot, and I hadn't noticed it the first time. I went back and rewatched this to make sure I could talk about it somewhat intelligently, where two characters are discussing the protagonist and her forthcoming marriage, and there are these birds that are kind of hanging out near this building, and it's dark and kind of shadowy, and then they fly up and over the building, up through some stairs, and like in another frame, two of the other characters are sort of at a distance from this, and it creates this effect that's sorrowful, that's dark, that's brooding, that's kind of depressing when they're talking about this possible marriage scenario. So what I love about Ozu films, so I want to talk a little bit about why I still think they're relevant. If you go to Reddit, if you go to Twitter, X, whatever you call it now, you will see all kinds of generational hate, like boomers need to die off, or those kids don't want to work anymore. You know, you'll see people do this, and Ozu's films deal with that generational gap, how one generation has a different way of doing something than another. And some of that does have to do with the time period, post-war and so forth, but that's still pretty true today. Like I said, when you look at Reddit, Twitter, internet, whatever, and he doesn't judge people. You know, he doesn't judge one side or the other. He simply allows you to be there, those low camera angles, and watch things unfold. And I think if you were to watch this movie or any other Ozu, you would see what I was talking about very quickly. There's been some discussion about why Noriko is so hesitant to marry. And one of the lines that one of the characters kind of compares a potential husband to Gary Cooper from Pride of the Yankees. I haven't seen the picture, but I've seen Gary Cooper and others. And she doesn't seem very interested. She makes a comment about the gentleman looking like an electrician. Okay, there isn't any hurry on her part to marry, if she even wants to marry at all. Maybe she doesn't want that level of intimacy, whatever it is. But the relationship with her and her father is magnificent. And what I love so much about Setsuko Hara is how much she's able to convey just like that. Just one minute she's smiling and happy, and she has a beautiful, contagious smile in all of her films, and then the next second, it's death on her face. And these movies will get the waterworks going if you have the patience. Much has been said about the final shot. I don't want to spoil it, but it involves the father, and some of those last few minutes are among my favorite in black and white films. So we talked a little bit about generational conflicts. We talked about pillow shots. I want to just say something else here. And this is a theme in many Ozu films that I like. So many people do what they do in life because they're expected to. So I'm a child-free person. I don't have kids. I don't plan to have kids. I won't. But I like them. I just don't want to have them. And I know so many people that have kids because they feel that obligation. That's one example of an obligation of society. Marriage is another. I have to get married because society says I do. I have to go to this church at this time because society says I do. Whatever it is that you're facing as a person, that you feel that pressure, like, hey, I gotta do this thing because mom's expecting it or my uncle's expecting it. These films very much deal with that, especially Late Spring, and they have, there's a consequence for that. And I love that about his films. He does such a good job with that. So as far as the release goes, here's the Blu-ray again, and you might be able to see there's like a bicycle here. There's a great shot. There's a great low angle shot of a couple of bikes parked by the beach. There's a great shot of Hara riding on the bike as well. Pretty famous. You may have seen that if you look this up on the internet. But it's kind of a minimalistic cover. There are essays in the Criterion all through here that you can read. I read most of the first one. I might go back and read more of them because I intend on watching this several more times. Those are my major thoughts for Late Spring. I hope I haven't called it Early Spring. I'll try to fix that if I have. I haven't seen Early Spring. I think that's a movie of his. So Late Spring, definitely check it out. It is one of Ozu's many masterpieces that he has in his filmography. Thank you again for watching the video. If you want to see me cover a certain kind of content, let me know in the comments below. And we'll see you next time. Like and subscribe, please. See ya.